I've landed in close guard by Graham, so some of the details once I've landed in close guard is to keep my chest pressure forward, okay, 45 degrees. My weight is really well balanced between my two knees, and I'm sat on the flat on my feet, okay. Other people might tell you how to do it different. I don't like being on the balls on my feet at this point. I need to be solid. If you are really flexible, allowing your hips to open and getting your bottom to the floor is really good, so your structure is really sound. If I keep my chest forward and I keep forward pressure going, things like hip bumps and things like that are much more difficult. If my posture's too upright, it brings feet to my chest, kicking away and things can get nasty and stuff. So what I really want to do is hit this 45 position. Now I've got to make a choice at this point. I've got to make a choice whether I'm going to control his hips or whether I'm going to control his upper body. I can't really effectively control both unless he's very short. He's doing everything right at the moment. He's got his hips lifted, he's got the heels of his feet on the floor. There's a very small gap at this point. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go through the basics of what to do when we land in close guard. So one of the things that you're told by everybody is that if you're in close guard, you never put your hands on the floor. Okay, now as a catch wrestler, this is absolute bullshit. Okay, you can put your hands on the floor. You just have to be careful where you put the hands on the floor. So, for example, if I put my hand here, yes, Graham can come up and get a double wrist lock or Kimura. Okay, watch this. If I put the hand here, if he comes up for the double wrist lock or Kimura, it's not there anymore. Okay, so making sure that your hand is above the rib cage is fine. Can he overhook it? Yeah, he can overhook it. But can he break me down? No, because my hand's straight, so he can't break me down. So I'm sorry to go against the grain, but you can put your hands on the floor. Is it a good idea as a beginner? Probably not. Alright, so getting past that, place where I need my elbows to be. I don't want my elbow on the inside. I don't want my elbow on the outside. Alright, my elbow's on the outside. This is begging to be Kimura'd. My elbow's on the inside. I'm begging to be triangled or arm back. Okay, my arm is in the centre. And it's in a pretty safe place, and it's difficult for him to do it. Okay, so being postured here and working in here, I can keep him at distance. I can stop him setting up to come and get me by keeping my palm of my hands underneath his ribcage, and I can lock him in this position. In catch wrestling, this is called a Saturday Night Ride. Okay, for obvious reasons. Anyway, getting past that. If he breaks me down in some way, so he wants me to get me to the ground, so however he's going to get me to the ground, so he gets me to the ground. Alright, I know that if my hands are up high, it's fine. Okay, I know that I can't get Kimura'd. Sorry, you probably couldn't hear me. But I keep my forehead centre. I never allow my head to go off to either side. I put my forehead in the centre of his chest. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my hands to the inside. Yeah, it's normally quite easy to get my hands to the inside. Once my hands are on the inside, my elbows are tight against his body, and then I start to work out to the sweat zone. Alright, when I get to the sweat zone, I'm going to start to push his elbows high. If I push his elbows high and I push it away from me, it's difficult for him to do very much with those arms. Alright, I'm very strong in this position. Yeah, so as soon as he breaks me down, it doesn't matter if my hands go to the mat. Okay, other people tell you different. Make your own mind up, that's always the key to these things. I'm going to pummel my hands on the inside and bring my elbows to the ground. My hands come out to the outside, and I push underneath into the sweat zone here, and I lift his biceps. Alright, I'm in a good controlling position. 45 degrees to him, pushing down with my belly, trying to get his hips to the floor. Once his hips are to the floor, I'm in a good control position. So this is where I'm going from. How do I break the breakdown? It's a bit complicated, but there you go. If he grabs my head and holds me down here, how do I get my head lifted up? Well, I don't try and force my head up because he'll just hold his body weight on the back of that head. And as I try and lift my head, hold his body weight on it. Really difficult. What I'm going to do at this point is he's going to hold really tight on my head alone. I'm going to put my hand behind his elbows and push his elbows upwards. Yeah, very, very easy. This is going to take his arm off. I can now get back to my posture into the sweat zone. Okay. Or if he's really holding really tight and I can't lift his elbows, then I actually have to reach on the back of the head and pull the hands off. Gets to the same place. Come in here, pummel on the inside the sweat zones. down with my chest pressure onto his crotch. Alright, so that's if he's holding the head. Don't try and force your way out of it. He's going to set you up with some ninja moves. Alright, next thing he might do is he might go, I don't know, head and arm. So he breaks me down, head and arm, and breaks me into this position. Okay, this is much easier for me to deal with because I can be brutal. So this hand's going to go across his face and I start to drive into his head. You see what I do is I hook in on the back of his neck with my fingers. I put my forearm on the side of his jaw and I force that into the side of his face. It's a cross face of sorts. It's pretty brutal cross face. But what that will allow me to do is to make space. I can now get to the elbow posture and pull up to the side. Obviously this isn't the way that most people teach you to do it, but that's the way it works. Okay. Another way to do it is if he breaks me down head and arm, and I can't get into here because he's holding too tight and stuff, is I'm just going to start using my head, and I don't mean thinking too much, I mean using the top of my head. So I'm going to start to posture onto my toes and start to drive my head into his head. As you can see, it starts to make him think about what he's doing. Okay, as long as I keep my head over the top of his head, he can't really do ninja stuff to me. And of course, my hands are on the mat at this point. Once he starts to release and let go of those, I can now start to work into the center and into the sweat zone. Right? One of the favourites that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu fighters especially use is they use an overhook breakdown. And this is very difficult to deal with normally. But I'll show you the way that I do it. Okay? So he's brought me down and he's got an overhook. He's controlling my head. Okay? If he's using Vale-Tudo guard, his head will be on this side. He'll be controlling here. His elbow will be inside the shoulder. It's really difficult for me to do stuff. He set me up really well for being able to finish a triangle. So what I need to do is I need to do everything step by step. I can't get my hand on the inside of this elbow. He's waiting for me to move this arm down so that he can block my bicep with this hand and start working his leg in this side to get to the triangle, however he's going to do it. Okay, so I have to be aware of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reach up and I keep my hand on top of his shoulder. Okay, it feels a bit weird and it feels a bit weak, but I know he's going to try and triangle me, so the more I can keep my arm up there, the better. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my weight to this side of his body and I step my leg up. This is going to create enough space down the back of his body for me to be able to window wipe my arm down. As I window wipe my arm down, it will come all the way down his spine and slide in at his hip, where I can then pull it back through. I keep this arm tight with my head, my arm and my shoulder, because if I start to pull this arm out, it'll overhook this side. So I get my hand across his ribs and then I'm going to drive him flat on this side and keep my head central. When I'm ready, I draw this arm back onto the inside of his bicep and draw it into here. Okay, works really, really well against the overhook. Oh my God, look, my hair is everywhere. Okay, and just take your time. Remember, he's relatively got 2 tools to work with your upper body. You've got 3 tools to work with his upper body. So never be scared of using your head on the chin by using forward pressure, and never be scared of undoing the things that he's doing by slowly breaking him up a little bit. Okay, so back to center. As soon as I get broken down, I'm going to base out, I'm going to go to the ground. There is no chance that Graham can get a Kimura from here. He tries to Kimura me. Good luck. Alright, and look, my hands are on the floor. How dangerous. Okay, can he armbar me? Maybe, probably not, because my head's on his chest. Alright, I'm going to pummel my hands in. If he's holding my head, I'm just going to lift the elbows up. If he goes head and arm, alright, I'm going to cross face initially, start to drive that away. See, I'm hooking on the back of his head, driving the forearm into his chin, into the line of his jawline, bringing my head back, lifting that, coming back to center. If I'm just being an evil bastard and he just gets hold of head and arm, then I'm going to start driving my head into his head. He will release that. If he doesn't release that, he's a better man than I. And I come onto the inside and I get him flat. If he gets his overhook and breaks me down, good Vale-Tudo guard. I know he's waiting to get to this elbow, to this bicep. So I'm going to hold the top of his shoulder and keep everything tight in here. I'm going to take him to this hip and I step up, making enough space for me to slide my elbow arm through, bring my arm out. I'm now going to put him flat on this side, Once I put him flat back on his back, I can start to work in here. Push the elbow, I'll get to my designated place of safety. Alright, what we'll do now is we'll work for a pass from here.